Welcome to Griffonomics. Today we're diving into ServiceTitan, trading under the ticker PTAN. ServiceTitan is executing a deliberate, highly technical corporate strategy that prioritizes mission-critical agentic AI-driven automation over standard desk-based SaaS tools, intentionally scaling its max intelligence layer to dominate the physical field service trade. However, this strategic pivot creates a structural tension, temporarily absorbing high-capacity research and development reinvestment costs while establishing an elite, multi-year, recurring revenue and transactional toll compounding engine.
Phew. Yeah, that is quite the setup.
It really is. And, if you were listening to this, you might be thinking plumbing, HVAC, pest control. Like, when we talk about the bleeding edge of technology, the blue-collar trades simply do not spring to mind.
No, definitely not. I mean, you probably picture massive Silicon Valley server farms, right?
Okay.
Or neural networks and generative art.
Exactly. You don't usually picture, like, a fleet of dented panel vans rolling out a gravel lot at dawn to fix a shattered commercial water heater.
Right, but this deep dive is going to completely upend that assumption for you.
Totally. Because we are looking at a massive, incredibly lucrative, and honestly, largely invisible technological revolution happening right inside the physical blue-collar economy. Okay, let's unpack this. We've claimed they are establishing an elite compounding engine, but what does the actual accounting math look like right now?
Well, the math right now is genuinely staggering once you begin auditing their fiscal Q1 2027 numbers.
Yeah, the top line is just wild.
It really is. We are looking at a top-line growth profile that basically defies the current macroeconomic gravity of the entire software sector. I mean, total revenue hit $268.8 million for the quarter.
Wow, $268 million.
Yeah, and that translates to a 25% year-over-year surge.
Which is crazy because to put that in perspective for you, a significant portion of legacy SaaS companies are really struggling to eke out single-digit growth right now.
Exactly. I mean, they're laying off sales teams, there's slashing research budgets. So hitting 25% at this scale, it's a massive signal that something structural is happening.
Right. But to understand the mechanics behind that top-line number, we really have to dissect what they call their dual revenue architecture.
Yeah, the dual architecture is fascinating.
Because they aren't just selling like a static piece of software on a CD-ROM anymore. They have two completely distinct buckets driving that revenue.
Right.
So break down the mechanics of those two buckets for us. Like, where is this $268 million actually coming from, and why is that distinction so important?
Okay, so the revenue splits into core platform revenue and professional services. And the core platform revenue is really the absolute beating heart of the enterprise.
It's the vast majority of it, right?
Yeah. It accounts for roughly 95% of their total revenue. Specifically, it came in at $260.6 million in Q1. And that segment alone grew at 25% year over year.
Okay, so what's the other piece?
The remaining slice, which is about $8.3 million, comes from professional services and other ancillary lines.
Got it.
And that smaller piece consists of the highly manual one-time fees. Things like initial customer onboarding, complex data migrations for large regional clients, and like specialized workflow consulting.
So it's basically the setup fees.
Exactly. It's a necessary function to get massive clients in the door, but it is not the compounding engine. The recurring platform revenue is where the actual economic magic happens.
Right, and I am looking at the gross margins on that platform revenue right now, and I honestly had to double-check the decimal point.
I don't blame you.
We are talking about an 81.3% non-GAAP platform gross margin. I mean, for anyone familiar with traditional physical goods, where you have to buy steel, manufacture a part, ship it, store it, an 80% margin sounds straight up illegal.
Yeah, it's unheard of in the physical world.
And even in software economics, crossing that 80% threshold puts you in the most elite territory imaginable.
It really does. It means for every new dollar of platform software they sell, more than 80 cents drop straight down through the cost of goods sold.
Incredible. And their overall Q1 non-GAAP operating margin hit 15.2%. So how have they engineered these margins to be so, incredibly resilient?
It entirely comes down to the mechanics of vertical software, and specifically the creation of insurmountable switching costs.
Switching costs, right.
Yeah, because when a company builds a generic CRM, just a basic digital address, book customers can swap it out for a cheaper competitor over a weekend. It's easy.
Right, you just export a CSV file and you're done.
Exactly. But ServiceTitan doesn't build basic tools. They build the digital nervous system of the contractor's entire business.
Yeah, the software handles literally everything. It's answering the initial distressed customer phone call, routing the dispatch, tracking the real-time GPS of the truck.
Managing the inventory in that specific truck, running complex union payrolls, even processing the final point-of-sale credit card payment right on the kitchen table.
So when you integrate that deeply into physical operations, you become an indispensable utility.
Precisely. You are no longer just an optional marketing tool that gets slashed during a tight budget review.
And because of that structural lock-in, ServiceTitan doesn't have to spend a fortune constantly reacquiring the same customers to replace the ones leaving.
Right. Their sales and marketing efficiency improves dramatically over time. Plus, the core server infrastructure costs scale beautifully across this vast entrenched user base.
Okay, so I want to clarify the actual revenue model for you, the listener, because understanding how this company actually extracts its money is it's the key to this whole thesis.
It really is the most important part.
Because for years, the traditional software as a service playbook was relatively lazy, frankly.
Yeah, very static.
Right. You sell a software license, usually per user or per desktop, and you just collect a flat, predictable monthly fee. And ServiceTitan originally built its base on this, right?
They did, yeah. They had a fixed managed technician SaaS seat model. You hire 10 plumbers, you buy 10 digital seats.
But they are aggressively transitioning away from relying purely on that static model. So what is the mechanism behind this new revenue strategy?
Well, we are witnessing a pivotal architectural shift toward high-velocity, consumption-based AI usage fees.
Usage fees, okay.
Yeah. The foundation is still there. I mean, they still collect fixed subscription fees. That baseline brought in $202 million in Q1, growing 24%.
Which is still great.
Right. But the explosive, really unbounded growth is happening in the usage revenue. That grew 29% year over year to hit $58.5 million.
Wow. 29%.
And that usage revenue is structurally outpacing the growth of the overall transactions on the platform. It's entirely driven by their transition to what they call the max intelligence layer.
Let's focus on that max intelligence layer, because it runs on their proprietary Titan intelligence.
Yeah.
And look, the term AI gets thrown around as a marketing buzzword so often lately that it's kind of lost its meaning.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone claims they have AI now.
Right. Most companies just slap a basic chatbot on their website and call themselves an AI company. So I'm naturally highly skeptical of these claims, especially here. If we're looking at real physical trades, software doesn't physically turn a wrench.
Right.
So what exactly is this AI doing?
Your skepticism is entirely warranted. And management actually addressed it explicitly during the earnings call.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The max tier does not consist of basic language models writing polite emails. It represents 25 distinct agentic capabilities.
Let me stop you there. Agentic. Explain that for us.
Sure. In software architecture, an agent doesn't just suggest an action to a human. It autonomously executes complex, multi-step workflows in the real world all by itself.
Okay, give me an example of that in the field.
Let's look at the mechanism of a feature called speed to lead. In the old model, a homeowner's AC breaks down in July. They're panicking. They call 3 different companies.
And whoever picks up first gets the job.
Exactly. Whichever human dispatcher happens to be off the phone and picks up first gets that revenue. But with speed to lead, the AI instantly intercepts the call.
Wait, it answers the phone.
Basically, yes. It analyzes the caller's history, it routes and prioritizes the most valuable incoming jobs, and it can even utilize virtual agents to negotiate and book inbound emergency calls directly into a technician's real-time schedule.
That's wild. So it happens without a human dispatcher ever lifting a finger.
Precisely. It acts as an invisible, hyper-efficient middle manager.
Okay, but how did that translate into actual usage fees for ServiceTitan?
Because ServiceTitan recognizes this AI revenue as a variable, consumption-based utility in the exact period it is used, they are no longer tethered just to how many human dispatchers the HVAC company employs.
Ah, I see.
Right, so if a severe heat wave hits Arizona and an HVAC company's inbound call volume spikes by 400% in a single week,
The humans couldn't possibly handle that.
Exactly. But the AI virtual agents can. They field the overflow calls and autonomously book the jobs. And ServiceTitan charges a microtransaction, a consumption fee, for every single one of those AI interactions.
So they monetize the real-world spike in weather-driven demand instantly.
Yes, without needing the contractor to expand their physical office headcount at all.
So they have fundamentally uncapped their revenue ceiling. They are monetizing the raw volume of local commerce.
They really are.
And that brings us to the second massive driver of this margin expansion, the fintech integration. To make this relatable to you, the listener, instead of just selling the contractor a digital clipboard to keep track of their invoices, ServiceTitan basically paved a massive digital toll road, and they are extracting a fractional toll every single time a transaction drives over it.
That is the perfect visualization. They have deeply natively embedded financial services directly into the platform.
Right, like payment process.
Yes. ServiceTitan processes the credit card payments right at the homeowner's doorstep. They clear the ACH bank transfers. They process the digital checks. But the real mechanism of power here is point-of-sale consumer loans.
Oh man, consumer loans are huge. Imagine a homeowner in an emergency situation, like a $15,000 sewer line collapse. The homeowner is totally panicked.
In the past, the technician would write a paper quote, right? And the homeowner would have to go to a physical bank, apply for a home equity line of credit, wait 2 weeks, and maybe, just maybe, call the plumber back.
And the friction in that old process completely kills the sale.
Absolutely. The conversion rate plummets the longer the customer has to wait to secure financing. But with ServiceTitan, the technician is literally standing at the kitchen table with an iPad.
Right.
The software instantly generates multiple financing options, runs a soft credit check in the background via their banking partners, and secures a loan approval in like 90 seconds.
Wow, 90 seconds.
The homeowner signs the glass, and the job begins right then and there. And ServiceTitan collects percentage-based transaction take rates on the payment processing, plus massive referral margins on the loan originations.
And the raw volume flowing over this toll road is almost difficult to comprehend. I mean, in Q1 alone, they processed $21.7 billion in gross transaction volume, or GTV.
Massive.
Almost $22 billion of physical, real-world trade commerce flowed through their digital pipes in just a 90-day window. That is a 23% increase year over year.
And this leads directly to their retention metrics, right? Because that fintech layer is natively embedded into the core workflow, the invoicing, the payroll, the inventory, the stickiness of the platform becomes absolute.
Right, they can't just walk away from it.
Exactly. Their net dollar retention rate consistently remains above 110%.
Wait, so explain what that means in practice.
It means that even if ServiceTitan fired their entire sales team tomorrow and didn't add a single new logo, their existing customer base is organically spending 10% more with them year over year.
Just by using the software more.
Exactly. They are doing this by adding more technicians, turning on the max AI tier, or simply swiping more credit cards. Churn is structurally reduced.
Because if a plumbing company wanted to switch software providers just to save a few bucks on a monthly subscription, they wouldn't just be learning a new calendar app.
No, they would be ripping out their entire cash flow pipeline. They'd have to retrain their entire field force on new payment terminals and rebuild their accounting ledgers from scratch.
So the operational pain of switching is so high that they simply stay and pay.
Exactly. They stay and pay.
Now, hitting 25% top-line growth and effortlessly processing $22 billion sounds like this frictionless, invincible machine when we just read the macro numbers.
Sure does.
But migrating legacy, multi-state, blue-collar franchises onto an advanced AI operating system cannot possibly be a simple plug-and-play process. I mean, we're talking about industries that, in many cases, still rely on whiteboards and duplicate data entry.
Oh, yeah. Spreadsheets everywhere.
Right. So where is the actual friction in this machine?
Well, the friction is intensely operational, and it's heavily concentrated at the enterprise level. To truly understand the backlog paradox, we have to first recognize the sheer scale of their upper-tier customer base.
They're not just dealing with the small shops anymore.
Not at all. ServiceTitan is no longer just serving the independent shop with 2 trucks and a dog in the office. They have heavily penetrated the massive enterprise market. During Q1, they officially surpassed 2,000 large enterprise customers.
Wow, 2,000. And how do they define an enterprise customer?
Clients generating annualized billings of over $100,000 each.
2,000 clients, each paying over 6 figures a year just for the software. That is a massive enterprise footprint.
It is a phenomenal base of operations, and that specific cohort represents greater than 60% of their total annualized billings. So you have this entrenched, highly complex base of multi-location franchises and massive regional powerhouses.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I was reading through the Q1 earnings transcripts, right?
Yeah.
And paying really close attention to the analyst Q&A. You would expect the primary threat to ServiceTitan to be a competitor, like a legacy horizontal CRM giant like Salesforce suddenly deciding to build a field service module and out-innovating them.
Yeah, that would be the standard assumption.
But management explicitly waved that off. They stated clearly that their biggest risk right now isn't external competition. It is their own internal execution and implementation speed.
That is the absolute core of the paradox. They have engineered this incredible Max AI product. It drives proven, massive return on investment for the contractor, and they have thousands of massive enterprise clients who desperately want to buy it and turn it on right now.
The demand is there.
The organic demand is overwhelming. The paradox is that they are staring at a massive backlog of eager enterprise customers, yet the top-line revenue from this AI tier is ramping up much slower than investors might mathematically expect.
Okay, I have to push back on this.
Yeah.
Because I really struggle to understand how a multi-billion-dollar tech company gets bogged down here.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is just code.
Sure.
I download an app on my phone, or I'd log into a large language model online, and it works in 3 seconds. Why is a cloud-based software company bottlenecked by manual installation? Like, why can't they just flip a digital switch and give all 2,000 enterprise clients access to the AI tomorrow?
I love that you brought up the simplicity of downloading a consumer app because it perfectly illustrates the difference between consumer tech and industrial enterprise software.
Okay, tell me why.
Think of the ServiceTitan Max AI as a state-of-the-art, finely tuned Formula One engine. It is brilliant, but the legacy data architecture of a 50-year-old plumbing franchise is like a rusted-out 90s panel van. If you drop that F1 engine into that van without completely rebuilding the transmission, the fuel lines, and the chassis, the moment you hit the gas, the entire vehicle just explodes.
Oh, so it's a data integrity issue. The AI is only as smart as the messy human data it's trained on.
It is the ultimate data integrity issue. Deploying these high-yield automation layers requires intensely methodical, manual calibration phases. AI requires a centralized, perfectly accurate system of record to function.
Right.
Consider the physical mechanics of the real world. If you allow an AI to autonomously dispatch a technician, negotiate an emergency call, and automatically order copper pipe fittings, the underlying data has to be absolutely flawless.
Because the stakes are real.
Exactly. If an AI writes a weird email for a marketing campaign, it's a mild embarrassment. But if the ServiceTitan AI hallucinates or operates on bad data, a guy in a physical truck drives 45 minutes in the wrong direction, burns expensive diesel fuel, arrives without the necessary specialized tools, and confronts a furious homeowner whose basement is actively flooding.
Yeah, that's a nightmare. The physical, financial, and reputational stakes are astronomically higher in the trade.
They really are.
So if a regional HVAC franchise has a messy legacy price book, let's say they have duplicate entries for Freon, or they haven't accurately tagged which of their technicians are actually certified to work on commercial boilers versus residential units, the AI doesn't magically fix that.
No, it doesn't.
It just optimizes the chaos at light speed.
That is the exact mechanism of the failure. The AI will look at a broken database and dispatch an uncertified apprentice to a complex commercial boiler job just because it thought he was available.
Which is a huge liability.
To prevent this catastrophic operational failure, ServiceTitan literally has to gate the rollouts. They cannot allow everyone to toggle it on simultaneously. The deployment requires manual, all-hands-on-deck executive sponsorship for every single initial rollout. ServiceTitan engineers and implementation specialists have to sit down with these massive franchises, map their historical data, meticulously clean up their price books line by line, and calibrate the machine learning models to the specific weather patterns, housing stock, and pricing nuances of that particular regional market.
And management openly acknowledged this friction on the call, right?
They did. The company president, Vahe Kuzoyan, noted that while they managed to more than double the number of locations running on Max in Q1, they are intentionally throttling the velocity.
They're pumping the brakes.
Yeah, they are learning the incredibly subtle mechanics of deploying physical world AI at scale. So this administrative friction, the human implementation bottleneck, is what is temporarily dragging down the velocity of their top-line AI revenue recognition.
Got it. The backlog of eager paying customers is there. The software works beautifully once installed, but the manual data mapping is the current speed limit.
Precisely.
But, administrative friction in the AI rollout isn't the only thing obscuring the company's true operational profitability.
Yeah, by a long shot.
Right. Because if we pop the hood and look strictly at their GAAP accounting, there are massive legacy ghosts dragging down the bottom line. So it's time to put on our forensic accounting goggles, because the headline numbers create a bizarre optical illusion.
We really have to perform a strict forensic audit of the Q1 2027 balance sheet because you are right, the illusion is very potent. I mean, we just spent 20 minutes dissecting a spectacular 25% revenue growth engine and a healthy 15% non-GAAP operating margin.
Sounds like they were just putting money.
Right. But if you look at their statutory GAAP reporting generally accepted accounting principles, the official rulebook tells a completely different story. ServiceTitan reported a statutory GAAP operating loss of $25.8 million for the quarter.
Wait, what?
And a GAAP net loss of $22.8 million.
Okay, I want you to really consider that disconnect for a second. How in the world does a company possessing 81% gross margins, capturing usage fees on AI, and processing $22 billion in credit card transactions manage to lose $25 million in 90 days, according to the official government accounting rules?
It sounds impossible, but to solve that mystery, we have to isolate the non-cash headwinds.
Okay, walk me through it.
When you strip away the actual operational cash flow moving through the bank accounts and isolate the purely academic accounting deductions, two massive culprits emerge.
That's the first one.
The first, and by far the largest, is stock-based compensation, or SBC. ServiceTitan recorded a staggering $54.6 million in SBC expense in Q1 alone.
$54 million in stock compensation in 3 months. That's wild. Walk me through the mechanics of that. That isn't just them handing out generous equity packages to newly hired software engineers, is it?
No. The vast majority of this massive charge is driven by performance-based restricted stock units, or RSUs, that were granted historically to the co-founders. Because of the highly specific way these historical contracts were structured, the expense recognition for these massive grants was triggered heavily post-IPO. The critical mechanism to understand here is that this is not cash leaving the company's checking account.
It's not actual money going out the door.
Exactly. It is a strict accounting requirement to recognize the paper value of the equity previously given to the founders over a set period. It severely depresses the GAAP profitability on paper, but it doesn't impact their day-to-day operational liquidity or their ability to fund research and development at all.
Okay, so it's a paper ghost. It is basically an accounting artifact from their transition into a publicly traded entity. So that accounts for $54 million. What is the second culprit dragging down the net income?
The second major drag is the amortization of acquired intangible assets. That hit $9.9 million for the quarter.
Amortization of intangibles. We need to translate that jargon for the listener.
Sure.
When ServiceTitan buys another software company, they aren't just buying the physical office chairs and laptops. They're buying the underlying software code, the patents, the brand name, and the customer contact lists. And the accounting rules state that you can't just expense that entire purchase price on day one. You have to slowly, mathematically bleed the value of those invisible assets off your balance sheet over several years.
That is the precise mechanism, yes. ServiceTitan has executed a highly deliberate strategy of horizontal acquisitions to expand their platform's capabilities into adjacent markets.
Like what?
Well, the sources detail their acquisition of Conduit Tech for $19.8 million. They didn't buy Conduit for physical assets. They bought it because Conduit had an incredibly advanced proprietary HVAC design and sales proposal platform that ServiceTitan wanted to integrate.
Oh, that makes sense.
They executed similar acquisitions with Convex Labs, as well as major integrations like Aspire and Service Pro to capture the landscaping and pest control verticals.
Got it.
So when they buy these entities, auditors assign a specific dollar value to the developed technology and the inherited customer relationships. That $9.9 million charge in Q1 is just the systematic, one-time integration right off of those past strategic purchases.
So when you combine the $54 million in founder stock compensation and the $10 million in acquisition amortization, you're looking at roughly $64 million of pure accounting noise.
Exactly.
These are legacy ghosts temporarily obscuring a highly profitable underlying operation. However, There is one number on the cash flow statement that you cannot just hand-wave away as an accounting trick. Q1 free cash flow was reported at negative $9.6 million.
Yes, that's true.
And free cash flow tracks actual cash moving in and out of the business. So I have to ask the hard question. Are they secretly bleeding cash? Are they burning through their cash reserves to artificially fund this aggressive expansion?
It is a vital question that every allocator must ask, but the answer is a definitive no.
Okay, why not?
Because that negative $9.6 million in free cash flow is not a structural burn rate. It is a highly specific, cyclical, front-loaded, seasonal anomaly.
Seasonal.
Yeah, management addressed this very clearly. The first fiscal quarter is historically and predictably their largest operating cash outflow period of the entire year for one specific reason. They pay out their massive annual corporate cash bonuses in Q1.
Ah, it's the annual bonus season payout.
Precisely. If you trace the mechanics on the balance sheet, you will actually see a massive $38.9 million decrease in accrued personnel-related expenses during the quarter.
So that's the cash.
That is the actual physical cash flying out the door to fulfill the annual bonus contracts for their massive staff. It is a known, planned, one-time seasonal outflow. The underlying cash generation of the business is so strong that management fully expects that as the year progresses and the bonus season is behind them, free cash flow will normalize and align very closely with their highly profitable non-GAAP operating income.
That clears up a lot. And to put any lingering fears of a sudden cash crunch to rest, we just have to look at their total liquidity buffer.
Oh, absolutely.
Because despite the bonus payouts and the massive R&D investments, they're sitting on a staggering $671.5 million in total liquidity. And crucially, they have zero mandatory debt servicing burdens suffocating them.
Zero debt.
So the balance sheet is fundamentally, structurally a fortress. The negative GAAP numbers are essentially an optical mirage created by the mechanics of transitioning to a public entity and executing strategic acquisitions, briefly compounded by a seasonal bonus payout.
You nailed it. The baseline is strong and the balance sheet is absolutely safe. The operational core is generating massive cash.
Okay, the accounting noise is cleared away and the balance sheet is secure. But that brings us to a massive existential question about their future. If the baseline is strong today, where is the structural guaranteed growth going to come from to sustain them through the year 2030?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, because they have already captured the low-hanging fruit. They cannot just rely on deploying direct sales teams to convince independent two-truck mom-and-pop shops to adopt complex AI forever. That customer acquisition cost would eventually crush them. So what is the mechanism for their future growth?
To understand their guaranteed growth vector, we really have to map out a structural macroeconomic tailwind that is currently powering their entire ecosystem. It is a phenomenon fundamentally reshaping the blue-collar economy, private equity roll-ups.
Wow, this is a fascinating pivot. Because when we typically think of private equity, we think of them executing leveraged buyouts of struggling retail chains or consolidating regional hospital networks. But they are aggressively, quietly moving into the physical trades.
They really are.
Why are Wall Street firms suddenly so interested in local plumbers and electricians?
Well, they are pouring billions of dollars into the trades because they have realized a fundamental truth. The home services market is incredibly resilient and largely recession-proof.
Makes sense.
Let's look at the mechanics of demand. If the stock market crashes tomorrow and interest rates spike, you might cancel your vacation, right? You might delay buying a new car.
Sure.
But if it is 0 degrees outside and your furnace cracks or your main sewer line collapses, you do not check the S&P 500 before calling a contractor. You just call.
Yeah, you need it fixed right now.
Exactly. The cash flows generated by these businesses are highly predictable, non-cyclical, and entirely immune to being outsourced to another country. You cannot offshore a water heater replacement.
But the industry is also famously fragmented, isn't it? Like it's built on tens of thousands of independent, family-owned shops that have been operating in local fiefdoms for decades.
Exactly. And that fragmentation is the opportunity. Private equity firms are executing aggressive roll-up strategies. They raise a massive fund, and they go into a region and buy up 30 or 40 of these local, highly profitable mom-and-pop shops.
And then what?
They consolidate them under a massive regional umbrella, centralize the management, achieve massive economies of scale on purchasing equipment, and eventually prepare to sell the entire aggregated network for a massive multiple.
Okay, and here is the mechanism that ties this macro trend directly back to ServiceTitan. For ServiceTitan, This private equity trend is like having an automatic multi-billion-dollar customer acquisition funnel that they don't even have to pay marketing dollars to utilize.
That is the genius of their positioning. The sources explicitly outline that when a massive private equity aggregator acquires a local shop, one of their absolute first operational mandates, often within the first 90 days, is that the acquired branch must migrate its entire operation onto the ServiceTitan platform.
Because they need uniformity.
Exactly. The PE firm needs absolute, standardized, normalized data across their entire portfolio to satisfy their investors. They cannot have one shop in Ohio using whiteboards, a shop in Texas using a legacy desktop software from 2005, and a shop in Florida using Excel spreadsheets.
And they need a unified dashboard.
They need complete visibility. They want to be able to pull up a dashboard in New York and see the exact dispatch efficiency, average ticket size, and inventory utilization of their newly acquired branch in Ohio compared exactly to their branch in Texas. And ServiceTitan is essentially the only system of record in the vertical capable of providing that standardized enterprise-grade view.
So think about the mechanics of this customer acquisition. ServiceTitan does not have to spend a single dime on Google Ads or send a sales rep to Ohio to try and convince a stubborn local plumber to change his software.
No, not at all.
The private equity firm buys the plumber, and the private equity firm forces the switch from the top down. This provides ServiceTitan with an immediate, stabilized baseline of premium revenue. It entirely bypasses the traditional ramping friction and high customer acquisition costs of targeting unproven, localized segments.
Right. The PE firms are deploying billions of dollars to do the hard work of aggregating the fragmented market, and ServiceTitan just sits at the center of the hourglass and ingests the premium.
It acts as an incredibly aggressive, highly predictable organic expansion vector. They're capturing the highest yield market segments automatically. However, as an analyst, anytime you observe massive consolidation driving a company's growth, you must immediately look at the flip side of the coin.
Yes, the concentration risk.
Right. If private equity firms are buying up everyone, doesn't ServiceTitan risk creating a monster that eventually turns on them? If a few PE mega aggregators eventually consolidate and control half the market, couldn't they walk into ServiceTitan's offices and demand massive price cuts? They could threaten to build their own software if ServiceTitan doesn't slash their take rates.
That is the architectural concentration risk, absolutely. And management is acutely aware of the dynamic. They actually warned in their official filings that if consolidation continues at this aggressive pace, they may rely more significantly on revenue from these massive consolidated entities.
So is it a problem right now?
Well, we have to look at the structural disclosures to gauge the actual mathematical threat level today. Despite the rapid pace of PE consolidation, ServiceTitan disclosed a critical metric. No single trade customer or private equity aggregator accounts for more than 20% of their total revenue or contracted backlogs.
Okay, that 20% threshold is vital for investors. It means that while the market is consolidating, the end market asset layer, the actual physical shops, executing the physical labor, remains heavily fragmented enough that ServiceTitan hasn't reached a single point of failure risk. No single PE firm has enough leverage to hold their balance sheet hostage.
Exactly. And even if a massive PE firm attempted to flex its muscles and threaten to leave, ServiceTitan has constructed the ultimate operational moat. We touched on this earlier, but we really need to define the depth of this integration. ServiceTitan is not just a basic CRM. They natively handle field service management, enterprise resource planning, and human capital management.
We need to define those acronyms for the listener, because that's where the stickiness really lies. Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP, means ServiceTitan controls the actual physical inventory. They know exactly how many specific PVC pipes are in truck number 4, and they manage the automatic reordering from the wholesale supplier.
Right.
And Human Capital Management, or HCM, means they handle the incredibly complex, messy reality of blue-collar payroll tracking, different hourly rates, union rules, overtime compliance, and performance bonuses for hundreds of different technicians across multiple state lines.
Exactly. They own the entire complex pipeline from the moment the truck turns on to the moment the payroll clears the bank.
It's totally embedded.
If a PE firm decided they wanted to rip out ServiceTitan to save a fraction of a percent on software fees, they would have to simultaneously replace their automated dispatch system, their union-compliant payroll software, their physical inventory tracking, their point-of-sale credit card processing terminals, and their consumer financing portals.
Which would be a nightmare.
The operational chaos, the lost revenue, and the plunging technician morale that would cause across a 50-location franchise would be catastrophic. The switching costs are effectively prohibitive. This deep native integration is what secures their mission-critical workflow sustainment all the way through the year 2030.
With that locked-in pipeline, they have achieved an incredible level of stability. And because ServiceTitan has this guaranteed PE pipeline and zero debt burden suffocating them, they can play an incredibly aggressive financial game that their competitors simply cannot afford. This brings us to their capital allocation strategy, or what some analysts affectionately call the share cannibal playbook.
Yeah, to understand their structural financial power here, we have to revisit the elite, high-margin, software-driven earnings potential of the transactional toll road.
The fintech layer.
Exactly. We discussed how ServiceTitan captures high-velocity gross transaction volume by natively clearing credit cards and ACH payments. Every single time a technician swipes a card in the field, ServiceTitan extracts a fraction of a percent. But it goes beyond just passive payment processing. The real compounding engine is the point-of-sale financing. By actively facilitating the massive consumer loan between the homeowner and the banking partner, they create a massive, high-margin referral revenue stream that scales infinitely.
Do they take on the risk of those loans?
No, they do not carry the credit risk of the loan on their own balance sheet, but they capture the margin just for facilitating the connection.
So they've built a massive, debt-free war chest from fintech fees and PE roll-ups. In normal, older tech companies, that cash is just used to service old legacy debt, or it gets paid out in small dividends. How is ServiceTitan weaponizing that cash against their competitors? Let's contrast them with the legacy players.
If you look at older legacy software firms operating in the industrial space, the ones we might classify as value trap competitors, they often rely on heavy external leverage.
They have a ton of debt.
Right. They have massive debt loads from past poorly executed mergers. And because of that debt, they suffer from cyclical revenue volatility. They are entirely dependent on selling new software licenses in a saturated market just to make their interest payments.
Which is a tough spot to be in.
A highly leveraged value trap competitor has to use every dollar of its free cash flow just to service its debt. They cannot invest in the future. ServiceTitan, entirely unburdened by debt drag, takes the massive operating cash flows from that fintech toll road and deploys it directly, aggressively into high-return infrastructure and AI-driven research and development.
So they're just plowing it all back into the product.
Yeah. They are pouring capital into their Titan Intelligence and Atlas AI layers. They are fundamentally outspending and out-innovating the competition because their core platform economics are vastly superior.
But pouring money into AI research is only a theoretical advantage if the AI actually works in the real world. I mean, you can spend $1 billion on R&D, hire the smartest engineers in Silicon Valley, and build the most elegant neural network. But if the plumber in the field doesn't make more money on a Tuesday afternoon, it is a useless novelty.
That's true.
So how does ServiceTitan mathematically prove the return on investment, the actual ROI of this massive capital allocation to their customers?
They prove it with hard, empirical, undeniable data from the field. During the Q1 earnings call, management didn't just talk about vague synergies or theoretical AI capabilities. They brought actual receipts.
What kind of receipts?
They detailed an extensive case study from a real customer called EDS Air Conditioning and Plumbing. EDS was an early adopter of the fully ramped Max AI tier, and the operational metrics are absolutely astounding when you break down the mechanics of how the software altered their daily workflow.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of those EDS numbers. Explain to me how a piece of software actually increases a close rate, because software cannot physically turn a wrench or charm a homeowner. What is the mechanism?
Let's track the entire life cycle of a job. Year over year, EDS saw their call booking rates increase by roughly 16 points.
16 points. How did the AI achieve that?
Well, in the old system, a customer calls, the human dispatcher is busy on another line, the customer gets frustrated, leaves a voicemail, and immediately calls a competitor. The lead is dead.
Right.
But under the Max AI tier, the speed-to-lead protocol intercepts the call, and the AI virtual agent instantaneously negotiates an appointment time and books it directly into the calendar. No hold times, no lost leads. The booking rate surges 16 points immediately.
So it eliminates the human bottleneck at the top of the funnel. But what happens when the technician actually arrives at the house? The software says the close rate in the field increased by more than 9 points. How does an algorithm make a technician a better salesperson?
It happens through intelligent matching and presentation. The AI Dispatch Pro system analyzes historical data and realizes that Technician A has an incredible success rate repairing a specific brand of complex commercial boiler, while Technician B struggles with it.
So it sends the right guy.
The AI automatically routes Technician A to the job. And when Technician A arrives, he doesn't just hand the homeowner a scribbled paper, quote, "The AI has already generated a beautifully structured, good, best presentation on his iPad."
Complete with, like, high-resolution photos.
Yes. High-resolution photos, integrated consumer financing options, and warranty details. The professionalism and the instant financing options reduce the homeowner's anxiety, so the close rate jumps 9 points.
And because the homeowner sees the integrated financing options, realizing they can afford the best option for just $50 a month instead of taking a massive upfront hit, the average ticket size increased by more than 30%.
Exactly. When you compound the mathematics of a higher initial booking rate, a higher field close rate, and a massively higher average ticket size, the ultimate result for EDS air conditioning and plumbing was that their average revenue generated per technician increased by more than 50%.
So what does this all mean? It means ServiceTitan is quite literally monetizing efficiency. They have engineered their pricing architecture so that they extract more money via a consumption fee, precisely because they are making the contractor significantly more money.
It's perfectly aligned.
It is a perfectly aligned economic incentive structure. The owner of EDS Plumbing is thrilled to pay higher AI usage fees to ServiceTitan because his underlying technicians are generating 50% more revenue without him having to hire more staff or buy more trucks.
It creates an unstoppable self-reinforcing flywheel. The more data ServiceTitan ingests from these incredibly successful AI deployments, the smarter their Titan intelligence models become.
Which just makes the ROI even better.
Exactly. That increased intelligence further increases the ROI for the next contractor, which allows ServiceTitan to capture even more transaction volume over the fintech toll road, which funds more R&D.
It is a brilliant, elite mathematical strategy. It is a machine designed to compound value. But while the math and the strategy are elite, no corporate entity is invincible. We've laid out the bullish mechanics, but it's time to synthesize the final verdict for you, the listener, and clearly define the actual execution risks moving forward.
Yeah, synthesizing the investment case, the final verdict is clear. ServiceTitan represents a profound structural value play for allocators.
Absolutely.
At current valuations, especially given the temporary depression caused by those non-cash accounting ghosts we unpacked, it operates as a highly cycle-resistant, tech-enabled field service powerhouse. It is critical to understand that this is not a speculative software bet hoping for viral consumer adoption. It is a fundamental infrastructure asset embedded into the physical economy.
I think the most accurate way to summarize everything we've dissected today is to apply this analogy. ServiceTitan operates as the unassailable, mission-critical digital operating system for the physical blue-collar economy. They have taken the messy, fragmented, complex, and vital world of the trades and successfully draped an invisible, highly efficient digital grid over it.
That is the bull case, clearly defined. But any responsible analysis must outline the execution risks that could derail this trajectory. There are 3 primary vulnerabilities that you must monitor moving forward.
What's the first one?
First is the intense operational friction we discussed. The extreme customer acquisition and manual implementation efforts still required for their AI-driven max tier to fully scale. The backlog is massive and eager, but if they cannot engineer a way to streamline the manual data mapping and calibration phases, their top-line AI revenue growth will remain frustratingly bottlenecked by human implementation speed.
They have to figure out how to make installing that Formula One engine into the 90s van as frictionless as possible. What is the second critical risk?
The second is the private equity concentration risk. We noted that no single client represents 20% of revenue today, but the PE consolidation trend is rapidly accelerating.
So the big guys could get too big.
Exactly. If these PE-backed enterprise clients continue to swallow up the fragmented market and become massive multi-billion-dollar conglomerates in their own right, they will inevitably use their consolidated market power to negotiate for lower platform take rates. ServiceTitan's elite pricing power could eventually be challenged by the very entities driving their current organic growth.
It's the classic double-edged sword of relying on massive aggregators. They feed you today, but they might dictate your diet tomorrow. And the third risk,
The profound sensitivity of the entire thesis to macroeconomic cycles. Yes, plumbing and HVAC are highly resilient, but they are not entirely immune to broader economic forces.
Yeah.
The entire revenue model is sensitive to fluctuations in residential housing velocity, broader home improvement spending cycles, and even completely uncontrollable factors. The CFO himself noted that Q1 seasonality was actively impacted by factors outside their control, principally weather patterns that delayed spring maintenance cycles.
Oh, that makes sense.
If we enter a severe, prolonged housing recession where terrified homeowners defer all non-emergency maintenance and stop utilizing consumer financing, the massive gross transaction volume flowing across their fintech tool road will inevitably compress.
Those are the physical realities that ground the soaring software metrics. It's a flawless digital machine, but it requires the physical world to cooperate.
Precisely.
I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as we wrap up. We spent a lot of time talking extensively about the financial metrics, the margin expansion, and the brilliant AI efficiency.
Yeah.
But zoom out from the balance sheet for a second and think about the societal implications.
Yeah, the human element.
Exactly. What happens to local labor markets when a single, centralized software platform's AI becomes so incredibly advanced at predicting home service demand and matching specific technician skill sets that it effectively becomes the invisible hand governing blue-collar wages and regional trade economies?
It's a huge question.
It really is. If ServiceTitan's algorithms ultimately control the dispatch routing for the vast majority of the market, their AI is essentially deciding which technician gets the complex, high-paying commercial jobs and which technician is relegated to the low-margin scraps. It is a level of centralized algorithmic control over physical, human labor that we really haven't fully reckoned with yet. The AI isn't just predicting the future of the trades, it is actively writing the paychecks. Risk defined, portfolio protected,